Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. Well, everybody thought the Dons bubble would burst. The only thing burst at the weekend was that balloon bouncing about the South Stand. The Dons fully back on track with a comprehensive 4-1 win over Dundee, a real tale of two halves. And I've got two fine gentlemen joining me as well, Calum and Phil, as usual, to review all the action from the Dons' victory over Dundee at the weekend. Callum, we saw two changes to the Dons lineup, Jamie McGrath and Seaver Nilsson, both missing out. I tried to do his whole name, but I'm a couple of pints deep as we're recording this, so totally bailed out on that. Replaced by Leighton Clarkson and Ante Palaversa, both McGrath and Nielsen not in the matchday squad, maybe to surprise of some, but two changes, no problems for the Dons. Maybe a few in the first half, though.
Yeah, I was surprised. I knew nothing about either of them, so I was very shocked. And then when I looked and see, so they weren't involved at all, I was very surprised, but still happy. I mean, if you're losing Sivert Nelson, not really anyone better to bring in than Ante Palaversa, really, and likewise with McGrath and Clarkson. But you mentioned there, I think we did struggle a little bit in the first half, not maybe moving the ball quick enough and making most of the flanks, which we see a lot of our play going down and our successful play anyway. So I don't know what it was. Perhaps just changes, maybe taking a little bit to get going. I don't know. And maybe a tiny bit of nerves. I don't know if you guys maybe felt that ahead, falling on from the Parkhead game, maybe just in the back of their minds, not Parkhead, Hampden, in the back of their minds. You think I had a couple of pints, and maybe that was lurking in the back of their minds, and they just were a bit nervy.
You two definitely had a couple of pints after the game. Obviously celebrating your birthday, seeing you out in Seoul with the Balkan trio as well. I think nerves potentially. I thought the atmosphere in general, Phil, on Saturday in that first half in particular was extremely flat. Look, I think the Dons Day Out is a terrific initiative in terms of getting clubs and associations from around the northeast in and good fundraising opportunity. But I think there's over 3,000 kids linked to that Dons Day Out, and I mean, I don't know how much that maybe played a part in the atmosphere. Obviously, great to get that amount of kids for the future of the club, especially going on to see a win. But yeah, it was a weird sort of game in that first half, but the atmosphere played a part as well.
Yeah, I think, like you say, like the Don's Day Out's great, and typically, I suppose the Dick Donald Upper is the new family section anyway. I think it's probably just in comparison the sort of last three games they've had being quite high profile, and United, Rangers, and Hearts, where the Dick Donald Upper is full of people who couldn't get tickets for say the Shed. That are up there causing a bit of noise. So I don't know if that was maybe just a comparison thing, but no, a bit like you, I think it was a bit flat. Whether it was a little bit nervy, sort of, I know the players probably had the expectation of try to bounce back. I think the crowd as well just wanted to see, a performance where we got our foot on the ball a bit more than we did the weekend prior at Hampden. So, yeah, it was a strange first half. I don't quite agree with Tony Docherty in the sense of Dundee totally dominating it, but they definitely did have a little bit more of a foothold in the first half than they did in the second for sure.
Yeah, maybe don't agree with dominating. Potentially, would don't know if both of you agree that they had the better chances in the first half.
Somewhat. I mean, I think Shinnie had quite a good chance, sort of linking up with Palaversa, towards the Shed. Um, but yeah, no, I think Simon Murray. I mean, all afternoon, I think Simon Murray was really their biggest threat, and I think first half definitely he really helped just drag Dundee up the park at points. He was a really good out ball. But yeah, like I say, game of two halves for sure.
Yeah, I know, Calum, we spoke on the last episode about the potential for swapping that midfield with the start that Nielsen's had to his Aberdeen career. Obviously, having played games for Bran already this season, Palaversa was the obvious replacement. Do you think we missed Jamie McGrath a little bit in that attacking third? Obviously, Leighton Clarkson coming in and looking to link up with Esther Sokler. Kind of the news around Jamie McGrath going in for an operation to sort the lump on his head. So out till obviously after the international break, hopefully back for the St Mirren game. Maybe has to miss that. Not too sure on that. Um, I thought he was a little bit of a miss, but Leighton Clarkson coming in for his 100th Don's appearance did have a decent game, but I think when you come in to replace Jamie McGrath, there's always going to be that comparison between the two, isn't there?
I think to a degree you always miss a player like Jamie McGrath when he's not in the squad. However, Leighton Clarkson more than an able deputy, and I thought he actually came in and had probably one of his better games, and one of the criticisms in recent times anyway. And one of my criticisms maybe he's been a bit too sort of powder puff, I guess. Like, but maybe that's just in contrast to the likes of Shinnie and Sivert Nielsen. But I actually thought he got stuck in a lot more on Saturday as well. So credit to him. And as you mentioned, his 100th appearance as well. Seems like that's sort of flown by in a way, a bit like when Esther Sokler hit his 50th appearance a couple of games ago. But Jamie McGrath always a miss when he's not in the squad, just that creativity. Even if Clarkson was to come in and start anyway, someone like Jamie McGrath to come off the bench, or if he was out wide and then one of the wingers off the bench, then you're always going to miss that kind of thing. But
yeah, and Phil, we spoke about, the kind of, you spoke about the chance that Graham Shinnie had in that first half, close to being on the line. I'm just saying that for Keith, who was adamant that it was cleared off the line in the first half. It was about fucking 4 yards from the line, Keith. But that was kind of really our only clear-cut chance in the first half. And I know we spoke in our group chat as well on Saturday evening about Topi Keskinen and Duke lining up on the left and right wing, and probably Topi not being on his favoured wing. Do you think that was maybe something we could have done to suit Topi in that first half? Because I think Calum's already mentioned Duke had a better second half in his notes, but I thought the first half he in particular was quite quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I think, like we'd sort of said last week, kind of surprised to see McGee at right wing back. Seemed to have really struggled with any pace at all. But yeah, I think just not even having him firmly out on the left. I think, like we said before, having them switching round, just constantly giving the fullbacks that headache is quite a good asset to have. But yeah, I mean, like you say, first half a little bit quiet, sort of maybe playing into the sort of the view we've had of him maybe being a little bit sort of narrow-minded in his approach at times, maybe not getting his head up as much. A couple of all right sort of back and forth on the edge of the box, but yeah, definitely a quieter first half for him compared to, obviously, as we'll say later on, his goal in the second.
Yeah, I just thought we weren't really kind of hitting the heights in that first half in terms of an attacking sense. As I said, Dundee maybe had the clear chances, Phil, and I guess that was maybe where some of that Callum's alluded to nervousness and potentially frustrations from the home crowd were not seeping quite in, but it was, I guess, from the outsiders looking in about the whole, in inverted commas, bubble bursting.
Yeah, I mean, it. Like I said, I think it was I don't want to say a high stakes game, but I think there was a lot riding on it in terms of, like we've kept on saying, keeping that good sort of bandwagon fairy tale league season going. And I think off the back of the Celtic win as well, I think you did sort of feel that nervousness creeping in that there maybe was a downfall coming. But I don't think there was really anything too much to, in my opinion, caused too much concern. I think especially in the midfield, I thought Palaversa and Clarkson complemented each other quite well. I thought Palaversa especially stood out once again. So I don't think there's really anything to concern us too much. Maybe a little bit heart in mouth watching Malloy and Murray tussle inside the box and obviously result in a penalty. But I don't think there was anything that really made me think that we would have struggled to come away with a win at the end of the day. I think we had the quality there, and obviously the subs as well, having the sort of ability to change the game as they often do.
Yeah, I think Palaversa, you're right, is a shining light. I thought him and Graham Shinnie in the kind of first 15 minutes maybe weren't quite on the same wavelength, but they eventually grew into the game. Obviously, that's a partnership that we haven't really seen yet this season. But Calum, you mentioned the decision making from Gavin Malloy in the notes, and once again, it's a bit of poor decision making from Gavin Malloy. Not for the first time against Dundee this season as well. For the second time this season, he's given away a penalty for fouling Simon Murray. We've seen it in other games where I personally feel he always looks to clear the ball into the danger area instead of clearing it out. I think Celtic away, I was obviously, again, a few pints deep whilst watching that on holiday, and a bit critical of his decision-making in that game at Parkhead. But every time he makes a poor decision, he, fair play to him, he doesn't let it affect him. And if anything, he grows into the game and gets better. But unfortunately, the decision-making is costing us to an extent. But thank God for Dimi Mitov, once again, with an excellent penalty save. But I just don't know what Malloy is doing there. See the ball out, and if it's not going out, just kick it into the corporate section in RDS at the end of the day. Don't take the chances. It is such a needless penalty to concede.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's one of those ones where you just really want him to deal with the ball. And it is starting to be a bit of a pattern, sort of poor decision making, and you're hoping that's just sort of him maybe struggling to adjust to the league coming over from Ireland, and you'll maybe sort of work that out. And he's a young defender as well, so with experience he will work out, the ins and outs of sort of Scottish football a little bit more. And you'd like to think those decision making issues will become better. As I say, thankfully, Dimi Mitov stepped up once again and saved Malloy's bacon this time. But I just would love to see him deal with that ball. But you also said he did do a lot better from that. He grew from that mistake. And I thought after that, he was actually immense. And it's just a shame there was that issue. But thankfully, it wasn't costly. But I think these sort of recurring issues with Malloy are maybe highlighting the need once again for another left-sided centre-back, not even necessarily to replace Calum Malloy, but a bit of competition, someone to maybe push him on a little bit more. So you'd like to think that would be something that would be addressed in January.
I think with that penalty decision as well, I think, like you say, I think it is that sort of experience versus inexperience. Because don't get me wrong, Simon Murray makes the absolute most of it.
100%.
And again, that is just the experience of, getting around a fair bit as a striker and playing in, different levels of the Scottish game. Personally, I did not see enough pace on that ball for it to even be tried to be seen out, to be honest. As soon as it sort of came into the box, I was just thinking there's no way that's getting over the line. But yeah, I think it is one of those things where I think his experience has sort of bitten him a little bit there. In, like I say, Simon Murray making the most of it with the smarts that he has.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, every striker is going to make the most of it to get the decision. It's probably smart forward play. And Calum, I know you kind of put in there about the lack of competition maybe not helping. Obviously, a lot's been made of Gavin Malloy and the fact that he was this whole project signing. And I think his recent performances in pre-season and the start kind of afforded him the jersey, and he's not relinquished it to the likes of Angus MacDonald, who once again suffered an unfortunate injury in pre-season. But I actually thought there's been a lot of talk, and I know this isn't in your notes, but kind of came to me whilst reading about the lack of competition. For as much as Malloy maybe had that one mistake, I thought Jack McKenzie had a pretty poor game on Saturday. I thought he was a bit hesitant again with his delivery into the box, was either at 100-mile-an-hour overhit or there's kind of no in between. But I want to speak about just when you mentioned there about the kind of maybe necessity for a left-sided centre back in January. Should we be looking at a left back in January as well, given Jack McKenzie's comments in the press that he's not currently focused, or he wants to focus, I should say, on his football rather than the contract talk? And there was a contract offer on the table a couple of months ago for both him and Jamie McGrath, and well, both of them haven't signed it yet. Getting worried about that situation?
Yeah, it is a bit of a concern at this point. The comments recently did, so I don't know if maybe we're just sort of paranoid with sort of recent things. In fact, it seems to be every season there's something like this. But that's just probably the nature of where we are in sort of football pyramid as a whole. It's a bit of a concern that he is going to leave for it would be development fee again, I'd imagine. And hopefully we'd actually receive that at some point.
I was going to say, hopefully to a club that would pay it.
Exactly, but it is a bit of a concern that it's sort of getting that way. But you'd hope that someone from Aberdeen who's starting every week, playing well most of the time, would like to stay with the way things are going right now, but it is a concern and it is maybe something that needs addressed. And Jimmy McGarry's not really had a look in either way. In fact, I mean, it's probably a credit to Jack McKenzie's fitness as well, because in previous season, Jimmy McGarry would certainly have had a little bit of a run in the team by now. But it is probably an issue that needs addressed. And if it's looking like he's going to be going elsewhere at the end of the season, and if we can bring in someone in January with a view to sort of bleeding them in ahead of the next season, not necessarily to start straight away though, but it is something that we should probably be doing.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with Daz Sutherland last week, kind of on the back of the comments from Jack McKenzie, and obviously you mentioned Jimmy McGarry there. I said it, Daz was saying that he wasn't really particularly convinced with McGarry, and I said I think he could actually maybe suit Jimmy Tillene's style, but I think we've seen maybe more of him in attacking sense, and I'm probably yet to be convinced by him defensively, which is a bit of a worry. But Phil, the way Jack McKenzie spoke, it kind of, again, it was maybe just the way that the comments are being picked up, and it was maybe no intention, but it makes for talking points on podcasts. He speaks about he loved the club, and it kind of felt that maybe his mind is drifting elsewhere. Would Jack McKenzie be a loss if he wasn't to sign a new deal again? I know I've seen that debate over the weekend.
I think he would be. I don't think he's by any means irreplaceable. He would be a loss, but I don't think that we wouldn't be able to find a good quality left back somewhere out there, whether it's from within the league or using our extensive scouting network that Davey has brought to life. But yeah, I think it's hard. A lot of the clips that were floating around Twitter were just that little snippet of the interview, without the rest of it. But yeah, there are sort of comments that I think as a fan it is kind of a tough one to take. You think of it in two minds of, no offense to Jack McKenzie, his ceiling at the moment is probably looking at English Championship. And it's sort of, okay, you'll get paid the money, but would you, trade mediocrity in the English second flight for, potentially, being in a side for your hometown team that gets into Europe, wins a cup, whatever it might be. But also as well, it seems like a little bit, if his head already is away and he's not made his mind up on signing yet, it's a little bit disrespectful to the club. If he's that determined on being away, just say you're not going to sign something and just let the club get on with the rest of it, and don't sort of let that hang over, your teammates and everyone else. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, I think episode 1 of this new season, I said Jack McKenzie was going to be player of the year. So I can't act like I'm not a Jack McKenzie fan, unfortunately. So I would be a bit gutted to see him go.
I think I mentioned this only on the benefit of the fact that Calum wasn't on the episode, so I could slander Andy Considine in the sense that would Jack McKenzie be fitting into the mould of Andy Considine, where he's a player that fits the need of the club, but we could do better?
Probably, yes. I think is the long and short. Like I say, don't get me wrong, I think Jack's a phenomenal left back. He's been great this season, but I think there are plenty of left backs that also fit his sort of play style out there.
I've never seen Calum come off mute so quick and shake his head so much during a discussion. I'll give you the option to respond.
Just keep his fucking name out your mouth, boy. Honestly, the king. Do not slander the king. Andrew Considine, what a servant he was. He was incredible, and he still doesn't get the credit he probably deserved for some of the consistency that he put in.
It's probably why he patched the request to come on this podcast, to be honest. In terms of Calum, the two of them, obviously McKenzie and McGrath, as I said, they had an offer on the table. Both haven't signed. Would Jamie McGrath then be seen as the bigger loss? And I think, obviously you've become a bit of a TikTok video on the fact that I made you read out the poll that we did, in the fact that fans in general, when Jamie McGrath signed, weren't overly enamoured by the signing. I think gone on to prove a lot of us wrong. Would Jamie McGrath be a bigger loss then if he wasn't to sign a new deal?
I think that's a difficult question because I don't know. I suppose Jamie McGrath was one of our best players last season, probably the best player outside of Bojan Miovski. But then you saw on Saturday, we do have Leighton Clarkson, who, let's not forget, is a brilliant footballer when he gets a run of games in his correct position. So I don't know if he's. We've got a ready-made sort of replacement for Jamie McGrath in starting 11 already. We don't have that for Jack McKenzie. There is that sort of argument, but there's no doubting that Jamie McGrath has been absolutely incredible. I would like to address that TikTok, however, though, and say that I was actually pro Jamie McGrath on that episode. I was pro Jamie McGrath, and then I get clipped up and made to look like a fool and get called Peter fucking Griffin. I was pro Jamie McGrath. I was only reading out the statement, and it was Glen who was anti Jamie McGrath at the
This
time.
is this is Calum calling out Aberdeen focus for a scrap.
No!
Absolutely superb how you got thrown under the bus in that sense, and for someone to comment that you look like Peter Griffin, I think just about ended me and Phil as well.
Yeah, so shout out to that person because it gave our group chat a good laugh.
He commented and agreed, Philip. No defence for a good friend.
Philip, loving to stir the pot there. Again, when we look at signings, Dimi Mitov signed to improve our goalkeeping, and what a difference having a solid keeper. Actually, what a difference having a goalkeeper that's a presence at penalties compared to Kyle Roos. Second penalty save of the season for Dimi Mitov. And Phil, I quite felt that Saturday had comparisons to Ross County where we weren't exactly playing well. Ross County, they got a penalty. It lifted Aberdeen. And similar, Dundee got a penalty. Demi Mitov coming up with a big save, kind of going in towards the first half. And that gave us that kind of bounce to start the second half. Good save or bad penalty?
I think a bit of both, really. It was a good save to sort of not palm it back directly into the danger. The rebound was on a bit of an angle. Like we were discussing in our group chat earlier, string of poor penalties in the league. Another one that just seems to be hit with no pace, perfect height, similar to McGrath's penalty against Rangers, Martin Boyle's the other day as well. But yeah, what a signing Dim has been. I mean, there's a couple of other good saves he put in as well, where again, I think comparing him last season with Kyle Roos, where Mitov's getting a strong hand and tipping it well away from danger, Roos is putting it right back to the penalty spot for an easy happen. So I just think having a keeper that has that sort of ability to really change a game in a sense, what an absolute benefit for us to have in our squad.
Yeah, made up for the one that went through his hands in the first half, and I thought, oh no, here we go. In terms of players though that improved from first half to second half and performances that maybe got a lift from that Dimmy save and maybe a bit of the hairdryer treatment in the dressing room at half time. Calum, you've noted down Duke's performance. That really was Duke of season one, I guess. And again, as you've noted, how unlucky was he not to get back on the score sheet, that header coming back off the post. But once again, once he stops maybe just looking for free kicks when they're probably more 50-50s, he was causing such a threat down that Dundee right-hand side.
Yeah, he was brilliant in the second half. It's like he sometimes just like flicks a switch. He's like, actually, I am brilliant and I can just blow by everyone and I am stronger than nearly everyone else in the league. And that's basically what we saw in the second half. And when he does use his pace like that, use his strength, hold off players, get by them, his footwork can be brilliant as well. He is unplayable. And we saw that very, very unlucky with the header that he sort of flicked back towards the far post, hitting. I think maybe the stand. I just put woodwork in the notes, so I wasn't sure what it was. But really, really unlucky. And I would have been delighted for him. Would have loved to have seen how mental he'd have gone. So I'm really, really counting down the days and looking forward to seeing that when he does get on the score sheet once again. So hopefully not too long, but back to his best. And when he does realise that he can just do all this with ease, he is brilliant.
He is brilliant, and obviously we benefit from that, as you say, when he realizes what he can do. But you also note as well, we've got a brilliant player in Ante Palaversa as well, and it's an excellent technique for his goal, Callum. But I also want to point out the work that Sokler does, because as I said in our group chat, it looks like he does a little bit of a Panenka to, I don't know, bounce the ball up or whatever it does, but the control that Palaversa does to drive that ball through a sea of bodies is brilliant, gives us the lead. And, we've already spoken about maybe the nerves and this kind of atmosphere, but it was that pressure release once the ball hit the back of the net.
Yeah, it felt like a big, huge sigh for relief collectively. But goodness me, that boy is just a good footballer, isn't he? There's not really any other words you can use to describe him other than he's a good footballer. The technique on that was superb, and as mentioned, getting it through that sea of bodies, and the celebrations were thoroughly enjoyed as well after a couple in the bar beforehand. And it's just what he can do. If we see that on a more consistent basis, and it's not been his fault at all, it's just he's not been able to get in the side. But it's such a good problem to have, the fact that he's come in for our starting midfielder who misses through injury, and he just does something like that. And then we saw it later on with the ball for Toppy as well. I mean, he's class. He's just a good footballer.
I know, it's absolutely class. And for, Jamie McGrath not maybe signing a new contract just now, Phil, it would be great to see Ante Palaversa agree to that extension that we've got on him just now. But as Calum said, going from goal scorer to provider with an excellent ball over the top for Topi Keskinen, and for a player that's maybe been a little bit criticised, maybe a little bit harsh, but certainly people are picking up on some of his indecision in the final third. He just did what he should have done in that situation and absolutely put his foot through it. I mean, if you're a Dundee fan, you're probably a bit disappointed in your goalkeeper, but a quick fire double was just what we needed. And it really felt at that point that we were just going to be cruising to 3 points.
Yeah, no, like I say, a great ball from Palaversa. I think the best way to describe him is just a proper FM Croat. Like, everything about him is just so silky smooth. The technique's unbelievable, for both the goal and the way he distributes the ball. But yeah, please for Tope to get another goal on the score sheet. I think a lot of the criticism probably comes from the price tag. He's still a young player, but we have spent, for our standards, a fair fee on him. But yeah, does the exact right thing. Weaker left foot just to get pure power on it. Like you say, I think it's another wobble from McCracken in a sense. He's had a few of them in the last few weeks. Just gets himself to high dough really and not low enough, just standing tall. I actually don't think he's probably expecting, a quick fire shot like that, which is probably again credit to Tope for that. But yeah, really sort of calmed the nerves a little bit, that we're creeping in and kind of did lift that atmosphere a little bit, like you say, took that sort of edge off slightly. I know the South Stand got a little bit more vocal off the back of that. But yeah, 2-0 was happy days until Simon Murray hit to be Simon Murray. That's okay.
Yeah, and I think, for as much as Tony Doherty's made about the goals that Aberdeen scored, Callum, in the sense that Dundee should have probably done better, and to be honest, if I was a Dundee fan, I would be in full agreement. They were probably easy goals in terms of conceding. We gave Dundee equally an easy goal in terms of scoring. Yes, Simon Murray has to do a lot of work with a header in terms of directing into the bottom corner, but Ruby's indecision kind of leads to the throw-in. It was just punted out and we didn't really reset. Dimi Mitov himself was really annoyed at the press to stop the cross in the first place. It let an easy ball into the box, but Ruby himself was a little bit lucky in that first half at 0-0, where I can't remember if it was who it was. It was one of the Dundee forwards. He just tries to haul down, and it kind of puts him off balance. And I think it was Nicky Devlin manages to get back and make a good block between him and Mitov. But again, another kind of poor booking for Ruby to pick up at the weekend. Maybe threw him off his game a little bit, but thankfully it didn't hurt us too much.
No, it didn't, and obviously we'll come on to it. We responded in the perfect way. But yeah, a little bit of indecisiveness. It's obviously a less blatant error than Gavin Malloy's,
Yeah.
because we should still defend the throw-in and then the cross a lot better than we do. But just these little things. But again, thankfully, as we've said all season, these things in the end don't really matter. But there will be times where they will, and then that's a concern. But same as Malloy, he is a young guy. This decision making and things, and just dealing with the ball a bit better will get a lot better. And then he improved sort of straight away in the lead up to our third goal, because he shapes as if he's going to go back to Mitrovic, creates the space for him to then turn and play it forward. So again, just like Malloy, responding in the perfect way, which is what you want, and it tells you more about their character, the fact the way they respond like that, instead of you see it really getting to them.
And again, I think also that the fan base responded. It wasn't a case of, I think a lot of the time at that stage in seasons gone by, when it goes to 2-1, there would be kind of a hush and a gone, oh no, this is going to end badly. But again, the crowd are encouraging. And Callum, you spoke about the kind of immediate response. I'm going to go to both of you, but I'll come to you first, Phil. Immediate thoughts when Dundee score and you look over at the touchline and we're bringing on Kevin Nisbet and Vinny Bizowen. Were you, obviously it's quite easy to say now in hindsight, were you in full trust of the manager? Or do you think, well, this is a bit ambitious, kind of continuing to go for it?
No, I think, Vinny, it's always a tough one to tell. It depends on what Vinny shows up on the day. A bit like Duke, if he's raring to go, you've got, a really creative, forward player coming on there. Nisbet, I was kind of keen to see come on. As good as I thought Sockler was, I thought we needed that sort of slightly more, I guess, physical presence up there with him, who could shield the ball a little bit. And as we said before, we've criticised Nisbet for coming deep, but I actually think that really suited the game a little bit, just having that extra body in there. But yeah, it was a weird one. I think there was that part where we were thinking, oh, Simon Murray scored. He's been looking good today. That'll be him having a bit of confidence. But yeah, aren't we glad that we were able to shut them up quite quick? Because it was, like you say, years gone by, that would have been maybe one that got away from us a little bit.
Yeah, I thought as Phil says there, Callum, I kind of agree that certainly the Nisbet for Sockler change I felt was needed. Wasn't maybe overly convinced on the Vinny change, but probably the two changes for the forward players that were beginning to look tired. And I think a lot has to be said for Jimmy to lean in the fact that I saw Stewie Walker point out that we don't seem to make many defensive substitutions under Jimmy. I know Jack Milne came on, but the game was kind of gone by the time Jack Milne came on. He's not one for, parking the bus a la Derek McInnes when we're 1-0 up. He's right, let's go and score another goal and kind of, kill the momentum of the opposition. And he must be thinking everything he touches turns to gold in the league just now, because 43 seconds after that double substitution, Vinny finds the back of the net with his second touch. But your thoughts when you saw both of them coming onto the pitch?
Everything he touches turns to goals, more like. Am I right, guys? I was quite glad that he's stuck with his guns. To be honest, I think a lot of managers, and maybe rightly so, I'm not sure, after seeing that goal would maybe hesitate and think twice, and that could pay off. They might be able to change things in another manner, which can affect the game. However, that one affected it in the most perfect possible way, and it was an immediate response. He stuck to his guns, stayed positive, and clearly just thought that was what our game needed, and it was absolutely correct. I mean, an excellent ball from Kevin Nisbet through to Vinny Bizowen, who makes a great run, stays really, really calm, nice composed finish. Terrible celebration. However, I'm not sure what that was.
He
At all.
100% bottled a front flip.
Either that or a knee slide, and it kind of just went really, really wrong. I'm not entirely sure. It was a disaster, but his finish wasn't, and it was a superb pass. But Dundee will be fuming that Lyle Cameron's not just stood in front of the ball, which you see at every other free kick all of the time. But then how often do you expect Kevin Nisbet to play a De Bruyne-esque pass straight through to the on-run share attacker?
But can we also just take a minute for that assist, Calm? Because how much was made of the through ball Jamie McGrath played for Esther Sockler at Parkhead? That's up there for assist of the season for me as well from Kevin Nisbet, for just being on the pitch as well.
Yeah, just on the pitch, having had an injury in recent times as well, to perfectly weight that ball, not just to try it and think, oh, that's a shame, good idea, and a good run, but to weight it absolutely perfectly, get the correct angle on it for Vinny's run was just superb. From a standing start playing that ball as well, it's absolutely brilliant, really quick thinking, and real credit to Kevin Nisbet for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure it will do the world of good for Vinny's confidence as well. Again, another player we've spoken about in terms of the impact sub. But Phil, again, just the perfect tonic to release any sort of nerves or pressure that we've already spoken about that may have been lingering on the back of Simon Murray's goal. The perfect response, and really talk about super subs, immediate response, all the classic football cliches were answered there with that third goal.
Yeah, and I think, like you're saying, credit to Nisbet. I thought he was really, really positive the minute he came on the pitch. Not only in the assist, I thought the way he was just willing to open up the space for shots from 20 odd yards out. I thought was really good to see, and I think as well, like you say, it really does sort of play into to Jimmy sticking to his guns. He's obviously made the changes reactionary to how the game's going. His view of the game has obviously been vindicated in the sense that we've lost the goal. So clearly, he did need to react in some way for the game to stick in our favour. So, yeah, really good to get that third, get the 2 goal cushion back up, and like I say, it was good to see um, both Kevin and Vinny involved in the third, because it's 2 players that if we can get the confidence sky high in them, they're 2 great options to have both off the bench or even as potential options starting.
Yeah, and Phil, we spoke about Ante Palaversa turning goal scorer to provider, Kevin Nisbet doing it in reverse, being provider to goal scorer. Once again, we score multiple goals in a game, and all the goals are spread out. As Calum spoke about when we were replacing McGrath Nielsen with Clarkson and Palaversa, it's once again showing that strength, depth, quality, any other adjective you want to use that we have in this squad. Belief is a strong word that I've been kind of committing to Jimmy to lean in this Aberdeen squad just now. And I think also plays back to what Shayden Morris said after the Rangers game about the bench being ready to make that impact and taking any chance given. But yeah, for me, once again, encouraging to see the whole squad kind of being used across the goals.
Yeah, I think it's good to see players chipping in on the goal front from across the pitch. Obviously Nicky Devlin's popped up with a few. We've had quite a lot from midfield, whether it's McGrath, Palaversa, Shinnie, and then obviously the forwards. In Tope, Shaden, Nisbet, Sockler, Ambrose, all getting on the score sheets as well. So it's good to see them all sort of spread across the pitch. I think last season that was maybe part of our undoing a little bit, was being too reliant on Miovski's goals, and if they weren't there, then there was nothing really going for us. So yeah, it's good to see that getting spread around the squad. And like you say, it'll do a lot of them a lot of good for confidence and their belief as a team.
Yeah, and Callum, one, as Phil says there, the kind of way that the squad and the team has kind of responded to the absence of Bojan Miovski, and I guess the question marks around how Aberdeen will cope without him, admirably, it seems. One player that continues to defy belief of this Aberdeen fan base is Shayden Morris, and you want to single him out again for praise for his impact.
I certainly do. I mean, the way he sort of teased that Dundee defender into going for the ball before skipping by him, leaving him on his arse was superb, and cutting it back to Nisbet, who really sets himself really well. Maybe gets a bit of luck from the deflection, but I think it's deserved with his 2 earlier attempts. But I really, really enjoyed Shayden Morris. Sort of really basking in his own glory, cupping his ear toward the South Stand as the South Stand serenaded him. And I think he's been absolutely brilliant. And I think honestly he must just love coming off the bench, because he knows he's coming on in half an hour, 20 minutes to go against a tight fullback who's just had to deal with Duke or Jay McGrath or Topi Keskinen for an hour or 70 minutes, and then he gets to just blow by them every single time. Nobody can stop what he's going to do, even though we all know what he's going to do. And then his end product's really, really improving. And I put in the notes 6th man of the year / 12th man of the year, because if there was such an award like there is in basketball, in the NBA, it would be going straight to Shayden Morris at the moment. And if that can continue towards the end of the season, then that would be absolutely superb. And for anyone who doesn't know what that means, 6th man of the year is like a bench player who was like the best bench player throughout the season and came on and had the most impact. And that's what Shayden Morris is. And I'm loving it. He's loving it. You guys are loving it. it's a tough one because if anyone else, no, usually with anyone else, if someone's come off that bench every week and making such an impact, you would think surely they've got to start. But at the same time, it's so effective. Do you want to change it when things are going so well? I don't know.
And I guess a similar sentiment comes around Vinny Bizaouin as well. We've seen the impact that he's had off the bench as well. And I kind of agree around Shaden. It's so obvious what he's going to do, but yet tiring defenders can't cope. And I think what we've also been able to use, I think we saw it against Hearts, defenders on bookings, especially fullbacks, they then can't make the challenge. We obviously saw that to our own negative effect recently at Hampden as well. But I like how you boys had to get back in a basketball analogy because there's nothing that I can compare with the NFL this time, so you can get your one up on that. In terms of Shaden Morris, as you mentioned there, playing a part in the final goal, Callum, how much does that attest to this squad and where we're at, that in the 96th, 97th minute, if it actually, of a game when we're 3-1 up, we're still bombing forward trying to score a goal, not just passing the ball back, hoping the referee blows the whistle.
Yeah, you mentioned McInnes there, and that if we were 1-0 up, we'd sort of go into this game management. It seems like right now our game management is just, let's just see how many more goals we can score, and it's absolutely brilliant. And obviously right now we're joint on points with Celtic, behind on goal difference by a long way. So maybe we need to keep this up if it's going to go the distance. But it's really, really encouraging. It's more entertaining for us who've paid our hard-earned money to go there on a Saturday. And it's far more entertaining us doing that rather than just passing with the ball around the back, with Dundee not really trying to make any effort to do it as they try and protect maybe their goal difference. So it's much better for us as fans. It's far more entertaining. It spreads around the conference, like you mentioned, 4 different goal scorers, and they must all be feeling great. And probably guys are wondering who it will be next time out, because it's superb to see, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's a bloody great time to be an Aberdeen fan.
Oh, it really is. And I was actually going to joke about it being a goal difference factor that we continue to go with it. But Phil, again, on the atmosphere, compare and contrast to kind of that first 45 where it was flat, it didn't really feel like that Saturday night game atmosphere that we'd seen against Dundee United previously, even the evening fixture against Rangers as well. Come the 80th minute and into the final few minutes of stoppage time, a real shift in the atmosphere. And again, great to see, all 4 sides of Pittodrie singing, standing up for the Aberdeen as well, and continuing to embrace what we're seeing on the park and enjoying the journey. And yes, our bubble might have burst in terms of winning a trophy in the League Cup, but we're continuing in this bubble on the league journey for as long as it lasts.
Yeah, well, like I say, League Cup's the Diddy Cup anyway. It's all about the league and the Scottish Cup, so who cares? But yeah, no, I think, like you say, it's testament to the fact that we do kind of just keep going for goals right to the last minute. I think that helps really put the atmosphere at an all-time high, because I mean, how often would you see it, even at 3-1 up, you're passing it around the back and inviting pressure on, you play one slack pass and someone's one-on-one and everybody's hearts and mouths telling Ruby to get fuck once more. So, how often do we see that? But, even players like Shaden Morris, having that sort of exciting player with bags of energy still in him towards the end, fair play to him. Never thought I'd see him getting everybody out their seats in the south stand every time he ran at a fullback. So it's just little things like that that really do, I think, help just keep the atmosphere boosted right to the very end. But yeah, it's just a good time to be an Aberdeen fan, good time to be in the city. Me and Callum certainly enjoyed it afterwards. So yeah, you can't really complain when your football team's allowing you to have moments like that.
Yeah, you can't. And Callum, we spoke on the last episode about the importance of bouncing back from that defeat at Hampden and, getting the feel good and winning feeling back. And we did that in quite convincing fashion, and it sets us up for a triple header of away games. We go into yet another international break. It seems to be one every few weeks just now. I guess it allows us to a little bit to reset, but this international break doesn't have as many players going away on international duty. Nicky Devlin called up. I don't think there's any under 21 games for Jack Milne to be involved in, and the only other player is Dimi Mitov with Bulgaria, and Topi Keskinen, who's gone to the Finnish under-21s as they're in the playoffs for the Euros. So not the full men's team for Topi this season, this break. So this possibly provides Jimmy an ideal opportunity with quite a nucleus of the squad to get some further ideas into the team ahead of that upcoming triple header of away games, starting with St Mirren and Paisley a week on Saturday.
Yeah, it certainly does, and that can only be a good thing for us, as well as that a bit of rest after maybe we struggled at Hampden, and of course we did bounce back. So that can only be a good thing. Likewise, Sivert Nielsen should be back as well. It gives Dante Polvara a chance to be back in contention for that St Mirren game. I suppose it takes us 2 weeks closer to the great Pape Habib Gay to be back as well, so it can only be a good thing. And ahead of what's going to be a very, very busy sort of festive fixture schedule. It's probably welcome, even if we don't want it really right now, because of the way things are going. And I think with the international break, the fact we're just playing the same teams over and over again in the Nations League and not doing very well, as Scotland fans, it doesn't help, and there's not really an appetite for it. But logically, you'd hope it can only help us, and maybe there'd be concern that it might stunt momentum ever so slightly, but we've already come through 2 and we're still undefeated in the league. So hopefully it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and I guess, Phil, we spoke on the episode of post semi-final about Jimmy Tilleen not wanting to, speak about excuses and tiredness. I think Calum does get a good point there about it is probably a little bit of a welcomed break, because obviously when we come back from the international break, we are going to play Saturday, Tuesday, I think the Hibs game is. So Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday, Wednesday, and then back into Saturday. So we are going to be playing weekend midweek for a couple of weeks. So potentially is a little bit of a welcome break, as Calum says there, for Nielsen to get back. Polvara is going to be in contention to feature in the match day squad as well. Obviously, depending on the minutes Nicky Devlin gets between over the international break, hopefully more than Tony Ralston, but let's be honest, that probably won't be the case. It's an opportunity for some of these players to get that little bit of refresh in them and ready for what is going to be a busy and quite crucial, I guess, schedule coming up between now and that festive break that Calum speaks about.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I'm assuming Nilsson's probably been back in Norway. I'm assuming that's why he wasn't in the squad at all, which again, I think it's just good man management from Jimmy, allowing him potentially that time to go back and see his family. So yeah, really vital, I think, that we do get a little bit of rest in the legs. I think as well to look at some of the errors that maybe have cropped up in recent weeks, whether it be at Hampden or Dundee United, whatever it might be, because returning from an international break, going away from home to a St Mirren team that's actually been playing some really good football this year, I think is vitally important, and sort of maybe ironing out some things and really looking at our approach to that. And also, the unknown quantity of Hibs, whether they'll have a new manager bounce potentially come the Tuesday, despite the call of support from the Hibs board. But yeah, I think like we've said on numerous episodes, I think there's plenty of players that could have probably done with a rest prior to now. So I think it's an ideal time for it to come, despite it being a little bit miserable from a football spectator point of view.
I really wondered what you were going to say there when you were speaking about St Mirren, because they might be playing some nice football, but they seem to have a off the field situation every other day just now. I think that's going to be 3 players they're going to have released between now and when we play them for off the field issues. So who knows what sort of St Mirren team we'll face when we return from the international break. But Calum, I think, Phil's right. Good break, good opportunity to be fresh for that St Mirren game. And, obviously, as he alludes to there, Hibs coming out in support of David Gray. I'm kind of maybe hoping they don't lose the first game back after the international break and we can face David Gray's Hibs side, because it would be really great to, after all the misery we've had to deal with Craig Sampson coaching outfield players, it's really refreshing to see Hibs fans suffering the same as we did. So to maybe put them out their misery and then end that hoodoo at Tynecastle would really be the kind of perfect tonic to those 3 games coming back. But that's for us to discuss it on next week's episode as well, Callum. But I guess what from the episode we've discussed, the perfect end to kind of 7 days of licking our wounds from that Hampden horror show.
Yeah, it sort of weirdly the immediate reaction, which would certainly not have been the case in recent years, was fuck it, let's just move on from that and bounce back and get a good win against Dundee. And that's exactly what we did. It's 4 goals, 4 different goal scorers, a packed Pittodrie on a Saturday night under the lights, an entertaining game. And more Shane Morris brilliance. Couldn't have asked for much more, really. And I think it was the perfect reaction, the perfect bounce back opportunity. We did that, and to go into the international break on the back of 3 points, still joint top of the league, kind of, is perfect.
It's perfect, and look, we'll take it because we want to enjoy this, as I've said, this bubble that we're in terms of the league for as long as we can. And it would really be great if we could continue to either still be level or within that 3-point range of Celtic when they come to Pittodrie on the 4th of December. But that is for future episodes. We do hope you've enjoyed this current episode of Red Tinted Glasses as we head into that international break. If you have been watching on YouTube, please remember to like the video. Those eagle-eyed viewers on YouTube as well might have noticed a little rebrand that Calum and Phil have come up with. Phil's photography, Calum's artistic work, I'll call it.
Yeah, Callum's straightening out my drunken photography, more like.
Yeah, to change the background. Eagle-eyed viewers, I'll get out eventually, might have also noticed a change to my own background as well. And it's not going to be the only change that is coming to the podcast as well over the international break as well. So if you do follow us on social media and of course on audio platforms, if you don't, hit that subscribe button. Check out what might changes come over the next few weeks as well. So thank you both to Phil and Callum for joining me on this episode. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Until next time.